So let's dig into this. I want to do a bit of coaching here, Jack. So
I
you
don't
know,
coached on that.
you got the afternoon off.
I
You've
could
decided
be
to go
more.
and do something that you enjoy. You know how long it's going to take because it's not as if this is your first journey to the hairdressers, right?
No, not
And
quite.
it's just,
And
and yet anxiety still builds up in you.
because look, I'm exaggerating a little bit,
Mm.
but I'm getting a bit impatient, and then and when it comes to the blow dry, they can never find an end. And I know they're just doing an amazingly great job. So I'm not complaining at all about them. It's me. I think, oh God, can you just finish with the blow dry now? It's good enough. But they obviously, they want to have it look perfect. And sometimes I tell them, I'm getting photos done the next day, so they're making it really, yeah. So it's my level, my being with that, and then I get impatient. My daughter also says, I've offered her once to work in her fashion market store. She has her own business. She has her own fashion label. She also sells on the markets. And one day she was away and I said, look, I can fill in for you. And she said, look, Mom, will you be patient enough to be there the whole day? And I said, maybe not, but I'll try.
First, know thyself.
Know thyself. Yes,
Yes, first
that's
know
what the
thyself.
children know you better. Um,
Talk
yeah.
about anxiety in induction units, children. Yes, I would agree with that. So, how much of this is being in the moment? How much of dealing with anxiety? Because when we look at anxiety, and particularly we talk about it in the workplace, and we are not talking as the disorder. We're talking just anxiety as a way of being. We can see a positive side of it in that it kind of prompts us to do something. Like Jacqueline, you spent too long in the hairdressers. Perhaps you want to pull your phone out and make some and do so. I don't know, but it prompts us to take action. And I always find myself that when I'm anxious about something, when I take action, that anxiety level drops away. But the other way in which I can manage that is to breathe. Again, I love my breathing. It's okay. You know what? I decided I was going to be here today, and I'm going to be as present as I possibly can in the moment and building up that awareness and going, okay, I'm grateful for being here. This is the choice I made. That's the reality.
Um, yeah, and I mean, you did raise a good point with anxiety. It has a positive side, and today there's a lot of talk about anxiety, and as you said, we are not talking about anything regarding anxiety disorder. We're just talking a sort of normal average level of anxiety that we all experience in life. And when I was working in the corporate and running projects, at times anxiety level would raise when projects were falling behind or we had certain risk, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, my project. And one of the other managers would say to me, well, it's good that we sometimes get a bit of an anxiety hit because it keeps us on our toes. And that's
Mm,
what sort of the light side of or the healthy side of anxiety is about. It helps us to maneuver through the unknown, and it helps us to maneuver through risk because we are present. It keeps us present. And so it's not just a bad thing. It might feel uncomfortable. It certainly did at the time when I, got this anxiety. Oh my God, my project is falling behind. And I'm sure many listeners can relate to that. But then again, it keeps you very much in the present moment. Focus. What do I need to do? What are my action items? And as soon as you said, you fall into action again, anxiety also subsides. Um,
mm.
so
I think it's interesting is that ability to respond rather than react. And that's about recognizing um, what anxiety feels like for you.
Mm,
You know, whether, you know, you feel it in your, I do, I feel it physically, you know, I
mm,
physically tense up, in particular across my shoulders
yeah,
and my
yeah.
forehead. So I'm aware when those symptoms start showing up, I'm going, hang, what is it that what's causing this level of anxiety? And I've learned to reorder my day and go, well, this is what is. And I can see it's been, I remember being a junior in an office at one particular point in time, and people just kept putting stuff on my desk and more and more and more and more stuff. And you can't really push back. You feel like you're drowning, but you do need to, because and I was taught this by my then manager. She said, for goodness sake, tell me. Tell me if you have too much. It doesn't help me if you pretend that you can do this and you can't. It's not useful. You need to say to me, I come to you and say, John, I want you to do this. And you can say, well, that's cool, but I already have this, and this. Which one of these should I not do in order to do the new thing you want me to ask? And that can be even more difficult when you've got multiple bosses.
Wow,
You know,
wow.
because
Yeah.
they pick the other boss's thing and say, "Oh no, you just don't worry about what Bert's giving you. Do mine." Well, then you got to.
Right, right.
This is real sources of anxiety for our
I
staff and people that are
me just
working for us.
me just listening to this also caused some memory, but it also this it is a very valid situation. I've seen it a lot, observed it a lot in the workplace, and I've mentored a lot of people around that as well. That there are healthy boundaries to be set, and it also comes to, you know, the topic we always seem to be coming back to is this emotional resilience, and also
Mm,
responsiveness rather than reacting or bottling it up. Is, you know, am I emotionally resilient enough to stand my ground and say, like you've just um, um, showed us, you know, I have all these things in my task pipeline. You're now giving me something new. Where should I slot it in and what's dropping off? Um, to actually say that and allow yourself to say this, and also allow yourself to be uncomfortable with it. It may not be comfortable the first time. That's why we're shying away. So it takes a little bit of practice. But once you've done it once in a sort of calm and collected manner, then the next time it will become easier. And then the thing with
mm,
many bosses, yeah, I get that too. There is usually in an office there is a there is a clear hierarchy. Oh, I'm not sure whether it's clear, but there's a hierarchy. You just have to go one level up. They're
yeah,
all piling up on you from different sides, the marketing manager and the software development manager and the test manager, and everything is important. Then you have to go
mm,
one level up and say, okay, I'm getting all these things in. How should I process it? What's the order of priority? Um,
yeah. And I think it's also important to mention at this point in time, Jacqueline, that we're talking about uh, culturally responsible businesses,
mm,
businesses that are aware of what needs to be done. We're not talking about abusive environments, because that's an entirely different environment.
mm.
And the only advice I can ever give to somebody who's in a situation where the boss really doesn't care how you're feeling, doesn't care about your workload, just get it done. And if you can't, well, there's the door. I would use the door. And I
That's
know that's easy for me to say. It's not so easy. I remember when I had three young kids at home and a wife dependent on me.
yep,
You think really, really hard, you know, and there were times I just sucked it up
yeah, yeah,
because there wasn't another option. But I kept my eyes open, and as soon as there was, I was gone like a rat up a drain pipe.
yeah, Yeah, that is right. There are sort of all these different layers to consider. And yes, if you look out, you know, if you have a family, or even if you don't have a family, you need income, you need to pay rent,
Mm,
mortgages. It's easy to say, oh, just got to find another job. Sometimes the job situation is not favorable for employees. But what I also find is when you have a plan in place, that
mm.
mitigates anxiety. You know, okay, it may take a little while, but I have a plan in place, and this is what's happening. This is kind of comforting. And you know, something is going to happen. It doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
happen right away.
That's a huge point, Jack. That really is true, because you're also then owning the situation yourself, because you're making a plan. You're
That's
not
right.
allowing yourself to be tossed around like a cork in the surf. You're saying, well, I may not be able to stop this turbulence at this particular point in time, and then you just let it be what it is, but have a plan. Be
That's
aware that
that's
there is,
right.
yeah, and keep working on it. Keep working with those people that care about you, that work with you and know you, friends, family, whatever. Just
Mm,
keep an eye out, looking for that next opportunity. But you can calm yourself down by having a plan. And another interesting thing that can come out of that is that if you can calm yourself down, it's interesting the effect that'll have on your co-workers and even your boss. If your
mm,
boss says, gee, you're calm under fire, you know, they're thinking, oh, there's somebody I can bank on.
mm, mm.
And you may not be able to get all the work done, but nobody might be able to get the work done. It could be just there's too much work.
Yeah, yeah. And
So there's
often,
no point in thrashing yourself over that.
yeah. And that's what I see often. I often see that there is just too much work to be done. What I've also observed, and I don't want to make it a finger pointing exercise, but often or sometimes it's not managed well by the manager. So then the manager
Yeah.
is not pushing back um, with what, you know, can actually be accepted as part of a project. And then we have this, you know, what's called project creep and scope creep. I mean, sorry, scope creep,
Yeah.
and things creep in, and the manager is not able to negotiate what is actually possible. And I see
Mm,
that a lot too. And then it's passed on to the people who actually do those particular tasks, and they have to kind of um, muddle through sometimes to somehow make it happen. It causes anxiety. And the thing is, well, we are here to teach also on all sorts of different levels in the business how to become emotional resilient, so you can manage that up and down.
mm, mm,
I think
mm,
that's what's lacking a lot in the business. It's causing a lot
mm,
of anxiety that is, in my view, not necessary. Um,
mm,
that could
mm,
be managed better, and it's one of my pet hates when I see this.
mm,
And
mm,
eventually, it'll also, if you work under pressure and also suppress certain feelings, thoughts, and anxiety for too long, it will also backfire um, in your health. And I've
Well,
seen
it
that.
backfires for everybody, Jacqueline,
Mm,
everybody. And the business will suffer greatly because it leads to burnout.
yeah,
That's
burnout.
ultimately, if you stay in the job where you have little control, that you're being um, pushed into working levels that you're not sustainable. You'll start disliking the job. You need to be there for the money. Well, the money's never enough. The money's never enough.
Yeah.
So, and this will then, first thing you'll become is disengaged.
Mm,
And a disengaged worker is 3.5 times less productive than an engaged worker. So there's a lot of incentive there for bosses to get this right. A lot of incentive for bosses to get this right, particularly when we're trying to live in a world where there is a lack of talented, qualified individuals. We've
yeah.
got some industries here that have got fulfillment rates on jobs that are as low as like 28% in something like the health industry now. My wife is a nurse. They are constantly, it is just a constant, they are short-staffed, constantly short-staffed.
Yes.
And so it's interesting looking at that in environment. They're pretty careful about how they're treating their staff at the workplace, making sure that they are being heard and being looked after and appropriate training. And you like to know this because it's a health environment. Obviously, it's crucial that the team there are working together, but they make a point of it because they need to keep their staff.
Here we go. Yes. And
And if what's a business without staff? A hobby.
yeah,
Because you don't
yeah.
have any customers. How do you keep customers happy?
That's that is so true. And also this disengagement is so important for a manager to observe, because I find often it kind of is in the nature of being disengaged, is it's a silent move.
Oh,
You
yes.
nobody's holding a sign up saying I'm disengaged now. No,
Well,
silently people drop off. And then
look at the latest Gallup, the Gallup data, year after year after year. It shows 11% people are actively looking for a new job, and then 59% are passively disengaged.
wow, that's
50.
a lot.
That's
And
a lot, yeah. And it's only a small percentage of employers that are actively engaged. And this is a huge issue for business. And this issue around anxiety in the workplace, where it's being caused and how it's being managed by individuals, but particularly by companies. I think companies really need to pay a lot more attention to this issue to ensure that people are not being unintentionally bullied or unintentionally put under pressure that's not sustainable.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And
um, Forced to work longer hours. Well, longer hours doesn't work. It doesn't work. There's so much research that shows that you're so much more productive if you go home after 40 hours. In fact, there's a lot now saying 4-day weeks. Thank you very much. 4 8-hour shifts, and that's enough.
that is so true. I mean, the productivity just goes down the gurgler, where
Hmm.
over time people are just not attentive anymore. And it's really interesting. I did some coaching work with a company here in Australia, which is actually an American company, and they're worldwide. And so their employees or their managers travel a lot to some of the other companies and also to source product. So they were in Korea, I believe it was Korea, and they were telling me they were arriving there at the office, and it was just after lunch, and the office was dimmed, and you couldn't see anyone around. There was someone at the
Hmm.
reception, and they said, well, what's happening here? And they said, we have our afternoon nap, I don't
Sleep.
know, sleep,
Yep.
sleep.
Yep.
And I've
I've
never
seen
heard.
it with my own eyes.
And they dim the lights down. And some of the employees, they have a pillow under their desk. They put the pillow on the table and they nap on their desk, at their desk. And and they were just gobsmacked. But Koreans are quite smart. They are quite smart. They've worked out this is really good for productivity. It's like in kindergarten, we have an afternoon nap.
And I think let's not pick winners in the cultures, because Koreans also have a cultural overwork.
Oh, yeah.
And I've seen, and also there's this issue of putting everybody in the same box. There are some points around. Look, Korea is an amazing place, and yeah, I've seen that. It's a really interesting way of doing it. And of course, this is something that the Europeans have been doing. The Spanish have been doing siestas since beginning of time, haven't they? So, and
That's right.
I think
Right.
we need to be humans. We need to be kind and treat each other kindly, and we need to think about what we're doing to increase the productivity of the person next to us. And the higher up the tree you go, the more you need to be thinking about everybody else and not yourself, except that you need to look after yourself. So that's where
and
you go
and
wrong. It's where I went wrong because I used to be in a trading company such as what you just talked about there, where I was away traveling for 120 to 130 days a year, which is a third of the year, right? And all over the world. And it was great to start with, but it was punishing and it was disconnecting, and it made life very difficult for John at home. The money was great and the air points were amazing. Like my kids went everywhere on air points. So, um, but it doesn't go for relationships.
mm,
And
and
so I
did it
think at that level, if you start getting a bit well, it brings other issues into play in your life that cause anxieties. It's not just work. It's this, I just, in my case, I have everything pretty much that money can buy, um, and yet I'm miserable. That's fairly anxiety inducing, I can assure you. It goes wrong at that point. But, and what I'm encouraging people to do is just know how you're feeling. Know the signs that you're under pressure. Let's call that anxiety. You're under pressure to get something done. All right. How are you going to handle it? What's your tactics? You're going to come up with a plan on how to handle that particular issue. And that issue might be anything from getting your project back on track or getting it started through to, okay, turns out I made a mistake joining this company. I need to exit this company. That's another way of planning, but planning and taking action, key to controlling anxiety and using anxiety positively versus allowing it to dominate you and paralyze you and create problems in your life.
that's that's right. And there is also, we are, as human beings, we are designed to be able to cope with anxiety, and we're very well equipped to cope with it, but not ongoingly, not on an ongoing level as we've seen it today here in this work, in general in society, at least the Western society. What I can see, it's this
Yeah.
constant stress, the constant exposure to kind of making a deadline, and having all these extra work. It is also okay to deal with an anxiety for a short period of time. So you don't want to become sort of completely wavered to one side where you always avoid anxiety. It's also okay. Sometimes it is also healthy to go through this because it does develop stamina. It is, up to your discernment to see, is this okay? I've just got this anxiety hit. My project is gonna looks like it's falling behind, and I'm bringing it back on track. And I can do this. I'm not falling apart. But if this happens all the time, continuously, that's a
Well,
different
this is this thing, a resilience. You build resilience by going through and
yes,
actually proving to yourself that you can do this.
yeah,
And,
that's right.
yeah, so it is important that we take this on. I think it's also important to look at your life and go, well, where is this anxiety coming from? Because, we have this consumer-driven culture, which has just got a bigger and bigger and bigger monster as I've got older and older. And I'm told that my grandchildren will be far more discerning about the information pressure that gets put on them. We have these pictures of perfect beings, perfect, and AI generated, and all the rest of this. That you can't just go out and be yourself because yourself is not good enough. That's and therefore I need to improve myself, and this just keeps putting pressure on individuals. How about we go, I'm okay.
Yeah,
And I believe I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
And I can only do that good job with a clear mind. Anxiety, I respond to by planning and then taking action, but I'm okay. I
That
think
is
that's a starting point.
that is a really, really important point you brought up, because there is this constant self-improvement type of theme going on. And there's nothing wrong with improving yourself. But again, if it's out of balance, if nothing is ever good enough, and actually saying enough is enough, and I'm okay. I'm okay. Because it does add constant pressure. I have to do this, then I have to be that, then it's constantly, and you also need to look at, what life philosophy are you following, and is this really working for you, or is this just causing more anxiety? Um, and yeah, so it's such a fascinating topic, actually. And and there is also this aspect of, in society, often anxiety is bad and, not good. And so this again puts pressure against anxiety, which is a resistance, which in itself is also not good. Um, as we said, in a sort of natural, relatively healthy way, anxiety is not a bad thing. But we're now talking about anxiety as if every aspect of anxiety is to be avoided.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not right either, because you want to, train your muscle, your emotional
Mm.
resilience muscles, and sometimes take it on. Okay, I'm now anxious about my project. I'm just going to do what I need to do and bring it back on track.
Mm. And then I will learn that I can do that. A wise person once said to me, Jack, if somebody comes to you and says, I'm going to rid you of stress, run, they're going to shoot you. That's the only way you can live without stress. It's an anxiety is part of living. It's normal. Anxiety causes us to think about what's going to happen next and plan for that
Yeah,
and prompt us to do that. Well, either there's a negative consequence of not doing something, or there are potential negatives of doing it. It causes us to think, to analyze, plan, and utilize. But you can never live in a world that is completely stress-free. But you can live in a world where you go, okay, I'm okay, and the world's not going to end if something doesn't get done, so long as I've put my best foot forward and I like myself and
yeah,
I'm good with that,
yeah,
then that's a good place to start. Get
yeah,
good with yourself.
very true.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah, and um, and you don't have to constantly self-improve yourself. You have to look at things. If things are not working for you, if they pull you out of balance, then you want to reconsider and think about, what's happening here.
Yeah, I think I take your point there, but like one of the things that I've found, the more I accept who I am and accept my circumstances, the more I can easily deal with them, and I
mm,
can rationally think about, well, that needs improving, and that doesn't. And then the grumpy old man comes out and says, "Oh, bugger, I can't be bothered anyway." So,
but
but in all seriousness, you have that. You make your own decisions about what you need to do. Don't be buying into, oh, look, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, you need to do the other thing, and all the rest of it. Otherwise, you won't be part of the it crowd. Well, the it crowd doesn't exist.
yeah,
You can turn yourself inside out. And
yeah,
as I said, I had lived a life where I had all the toys. Maybe not as many as other people wanted, but I had all the toys that I wanted. Um, and that doesn't make you happy.
no,
What
and
makes you happy is knowing you are okay and that you have control of your life. That's what brings about contentment, in my view. And it's the antithesis of anxiety. It's a salve for anxiety, But anxiety sits there and it stops you from being too content. It says, hang on, you need to do something else. And that's a great thing. That's a good
Yeah,
thing. It should be celebrated.
it is. It's like a constant course correction a little bit, like GPS system. It's just
That's a great way of putting it. It's a constant course corrector. Yeah.
and that's fine. And also when you start, I mean, there's also nothing wrong with, buying things and acquiring things that you enjoy, as long as you actually enjoy them. But you can get easily then again sucked into this consumerism, where then you buy one item, you acquire one item, then you need the next one, and that's causing also anxiety. It's not having you be in the present moment, as you said, being here. If you can be okay with what is right now, there's a lot of freedom in there, and there's then no room for anxiety. And then, as you said, sometimes anxiety comes in to wake you up. It's like, hey, enough of that. A little bit, you can do a little bit more. And if you are up for something in life, like if you challenge yourself, as in you take on a bigger project, or you start a family, you challenge yourself in different ways, which, naturally anxiety will kick in, but it'll keep you on track, because you need to also sometimes challenge yourself. Otherwise, yeah, it's complacent. It's, yeah, comfortable. But well,
Yeah. Well, and it'll get you nowhere because all the growth is in the discomfort zone.
yeah, how
It
about
is. It
that?
is. That's where
It is.
that's the feeling. That's the feeling of growth, and that is anxiety. So if you're feeling a bit of anxiety, you're growing. Well, that's a
Yeah.
good thing.
And
That's I own it, but don't allow it to dominate you, and
yeah,
don't and allow ensure that this is your own system telling you, hey, you need to be aware of that. There's some you need to be your senses need to be up, and you need to be aware of what's going on. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
because this that, and that. Be very careful you don't get dragged into it because of FOMO. FOMO's ugly, like fear of missing out on what?
Yeah, on that's a really good question. Best
On
question
what?
ever. On
And
what?
on
What are
and
you
on
missing out?
everything has its season. And like I was talking to a client yesterday, and he wants to do a sail around the world. Now, interestingly enough, he doesn't even know how to sail yet. But
But
he's got to figure out that there's an A plan and a B plan and a C plan, i.e., he doesn't have to do all the legs at once. He's found a race that uses amateurs as crews. They have skilled skippers and whatnot. You have to have some idea, but generally speaking, it's amateur on amateur, and it's safe, but you get to do it. You don't have to do all the legs. Thing being, it's his plan. And he wants to do that. It's not somebody else saying, "Oh, look, come on, come and do this. You need to sail around the world. You need to take on a big adventure."
no,
No,
that's right.
you
If
might
it's
want
not
to.
your thing, if it's not your thing, it's no. It's
Mm.
yeah.
So
And
don't let your friends pressure you.
yeah.
Don't get that peer pressure and go, "Oh, I row my own boat."
That's right, and be proud of it. And
Yeah.
if the boat tips over, well, you just turn it around, get back in.
Mm.
And yeah, yeah, I
There's an
think
old saying that says, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," but it's obviously smart to stay away from sharp things and burny things.
yeah, yeah, and but not completely pack yourself in cotton wool.
No.
Because there's empowerment when you actually you go through this process where you are starting a new project or a new phase in your life, and you might get married and you have a little bit of anxiety, which is quite normal, by the way. But you proceed with your plan because that's your plan, and then
Mm.
you
Mm.
sort of conquer that anxiety. That is
Mm.
giving you empowerment, that is making you confident,
Mm.
because you've claimed your spot in life.
Mm.
And that is giving you this emotional resilience, which we talk so much about. because you need to practice, train it, and you need to claim it for yourself. And when you've done it, it is so rewarding, so
Yeah,
rewarding.
and when you think about any of the great adventures in life, getting an education, you enroll in university, and you've got 4 years of learning, or 3 or 4 years of learning ahead of you, and you can't know how that's going to go. You can only plan,
Mm,
and you plan to do the work. And once you put the plan in, you do the work, and you spend the time in the library or online or whatever, and with your tutes and lectures, and magically it all happens.
mm.
You don't need to know the outcome, and there's no need to worry about the outcome.
It
If
is,
that's your plan, get stuck in, do the work.
yeah. Action, I mean, you've mentioned this before. Action is a really good healer of anxiety, just being in action. And if you find, okay, oh, you've stepped into the wrong direction, that's fine. It's course correction. It's like a GPS. It just tells you, at the next roundabout, just turn around. And
Mm.
it's an instant feedback loop. And anxiety is there to guide you through this unknown path, so you're present and you're sharp and you watch where you're going, so you don't trip over.
Yes, because complacency is just as big an error. If you're complacent, you go nowhere. Incomplacent, you'll make mistakes because you'll be sloppy.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
anxiety,
That's, you'll be sloppy.
yeah.
That's
So it's a reality for being a human that you will feel anxiety. The question is, what do you do with it?
yeah, yeah,
And when do you do that?
yeah,
How do you view it as a good thing or a bad thing? And I think the invitation that we're sending out today here, Jack, is that first and foremostly, understand anxiety is a good thing, and it only gets to be a bad thing when it gets out of hand,
yeah,
and it's not in your plan.
yeah,
It's being foisted on you by peer pressure, or by maybe pressure from bosses, and you're not feeling the ability to step up and talk about it. But it's important that you do, because you're not doing the bosses any favors if you're not telling them you're not coping. And it's not even so much that not coping thing, is that no human can be effective if they're spending a whole bunch of their computing power spinning their wheels, going, oh my God, how am I going to get this done? How am I going to get this done? I've got to fit, and they're actually spending a lot of their computing power scheduling. Scheduling. Oh, I can do this, that, and the next thing. Oh, no.
oh, just listening to
We
you
need.
makes my anxiety come out.
Well, you've got to. This is
But
this is this is again. I come back to this. Is breathe, okay, but you also need to communicate.
yeah,
Feel free to tell your friends that you don't like Bon Jovi, and therefore you aren't going to go to the concert. You'd rather spend $100 going to the opera. If that's your thing, do it.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
Tell your boss, hey, I want to, be the eager employee, but I have these ones on. What am I pushing off the menu to get that done?
Mm.
I've had employees do that to me, and you know what I've done? That because I remember going, none of them. I'll find someone else. But I didn't know what their workload is.
Yeah, that's
And you
that's
can, and
right.
if and I would say that any boss who knows what each of their employees is doing down in detail is a micromanager and needs to back off.
Yeah,
You employ these people to do a job. You don't need to micromanage them. So this communication up the line is as important as communication down the line.
it is. It is. And the managers, they have their own pressures and time pressures, and
Hmm.
they don't have the time. If you don't tell them, they
Hmm.
they they might not notice, what's going on, and it is perfectly fine to do so.
Absolutely. And you may find they are able to provide you with insights in ways and means in which you can cope. Because they may be able to provide you labor-saving ideas, or saying, my goodness, what are you doing struggling with that? Because Susan, she's an expert in that. Why don't we just pop that one over to Susan? And
how cool is that?
yeah.
That's
So
yeah.
But are you sitting there stewing in your anxiety? It's not helping.
Yeah. Communication is very, very important.
Communication is vital. And so invite our listeners to just, this isn't the last, I suppose the way I'm seeing it is that what we're really talking about here is be aware of your circumstances. Take as much of awareness into account that you can. Do a 360 for yourself. Take a look at the issues you're facing from your perspective, your boss's perspective, a third person's perspective, a global perspective. The more you can see these issues, the more you will be able to get away from a myopia into a macro view, and that will help again give you breathing space. And then, who do I need to communicate, and what do I need to communicate in order to get past this situation? Because 90% of employers out there, probably more, that's just a number I picked, they really do care about their staff, because they know it's true. They are the most important assets that any company has. Good, engaged employees are by far and away more important than very big machines. Because the machines don't operate themselves. Maybe next year they will. AI. I don't know. iRobot. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, we're not going into that one today.
No, I'm not going down that road. No.
That's far too much. I would conclude this with this sort of anxiety discussion also around, make anxiety your friend, your little invisible friend that's guiding you through the unknown territory, and it's keeping you on your toes. And just make it your friend. Oh, here's my friend again, anxiety. Versus, oh my God, I feel so anxious. It's your attitude.
Your attitude matters. Yeah, really good stuff, Jack. Because that little voice there is to help you be the best in bringing your unique being out into the world. It is not going to be satisfied with you being complacent. It's going to say, no, how about we do this? And that's okay.
That's right. And hopefully, I mean, we've given a bit of a different perspective on anxiety, because it's sort of in general seen as an overarching negative experience, and we want to gear away from that a little bit. It can be, but it also has positive sides.
Well, that's right. And I think that negative image that anxiety has is because we as a society have not been managing it. And I think the information flow, that's the huge amount of information that's flowing into our inboxes nowadays, that's part of it. So that's why I come back to, it's an individual's choice, and an individual knows what's right for them and what's wrong for them, and communicate that to the people around them. And then go for it. Go grow your life. Live big lives. No point in living a small one. It's just a waste of time. Be brave. Be courageous. Find the courage to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason.
Awesome.
Solve that one and you'll be good.
Yeah.